Okay.
Okay. I should have said all of that so that people would know that are join that watch them. Lots of people join and watch later. So anyway, but you're here. So you have the opportunity to ask questions. So at the Q&A at the bottom of the screen, if you would please throw your questions in there. So Scott will talk about a topic of his picking, and then we'll answer questions on his topic or whatever else you have. Again, from a recovery standpoint, we are not clinicians like Dr. David or Dr. Rob. So have at it, Scott.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I thought this seems to be relapse season for a lot of people. So I thought we'd talk a little bit about relapse prevention and tools for sobriety. The way to avoid relapse prevention is to prepare for triggers. We're all going to be triggered. If we're prepared and we know how to handle them, we're going to do a lot better than if we're not prepared. The analogy I usually use, and this is actually a lot of this, what we're going to talk about today, comes from the work groups that Tami mentioned. The analogy that I use when I'm teaching this is fire drills in grammar school. In elementary school, somebody would pull the alarm and the teacher would say, okay, everybody single file, line up, and we'd line up in single file, and she would get at the head of the line and we'd walk out and do a U-turn in the parking lot. And then the fire department would come and count heads, and then they would go through the building and make sure everybody was out. And we did this 3 or 4 times a year. And the reason we did this was so that we would know what to do if there was a fire. We wouldn't freak out. We would, if there was an actual fire, the alarm would go off. The teacher would say, everybody line up. We'd do it, and we'd go out, and everything would be fine because we practiced it enough, and it was kind of that it got boring and uneventful, and then it was just automatic. If you're old enough, you also had, well, in Indiana, we had tornado drills, but if you're old enough, you probably had the duck and cover nuclear drills. So those were fun. And even as a little kid, I thought, yeah, this isn't going to work. But
so, you were right.
Yeah. So sobriety is in a lot of respects the same way. Just as in life, there will be fires, there will be tornadoes. Hopefully, there will not be nuclear attacks, but we will be triggered. It's inevitable as sex addicts. It's inevitable as partners of sex addicts that you're going to have some emotional triggers. The question is, are we prepared for them? What are we going to do with them? So, if I'm an addict, I can't leave the house and not be triggered. I mean, a billboard, a person, an ad, anything, or triggers can also be emotional. Somebody will say something that'll rankle me or whatever, and those are actually much bigger triggers for me. And things like boredom. Boredom is a huge trigger for me. Anxiety is a huge trigger for me. I have to be prepared to deal with these things. If somebody lies to me and I find out about it, I don't like that. So first I want to talk about some tools that you can use when you're triggered. And then we'll talk about what we call emergency exit plans. We'll do that really quickly. So there are tools, and these are mostly speaking from the addict perspective, but betrayed partners that I've talked to say these work very well for them also. So the first one I like to talk about is bookending. Bookending is if I'm going to the office party and Susie from accounting, who is an old affair partner, is going to be there, and she likes to drink at the office party. I know that I'm going to be triggered and tempted, and so I'm going to bookend it. I'm going to call my sponsor before the event, and I'm going to say, hey, I got to go to the office party. I can't avoid it. Old acting out partner's going to be there. People are going to be drinking. And my sponsor or my therapist or my friend in recovery, whoever I call before the event, we'll talk about what I'm going to do. If Susie comes over and talks to me, how I'm going to handle it, all that stuff. And then we're going to make a plan for me to get the heck out of there if things get too dicey. And then after the event, I'm going to call that same person, check in, and we're going to go through the event, talk about what I did well, what I might want to do differently next time. But basically, the before call, I commit to sobriety, and the after call, I'm making that call to say, yes, I made it through the event. Thank you for helping me bookend. And there's something about that level of accountability that really helps people stay sober, whether it's alcohol, drugs, sex, anything. The next one, HALT. Tami loves this one. It's an acronym for hungry, angry, anxious, lonely, tired. And I think you add something at the
I
end.
add S for stressed. So I have HALTs. And
Yeah.
honestly, for me, stress is a trigger. So, high levels of certain stress. So, yeah.
Yeah. So 9 times out of 10, when I'm feeling off and I start to think about, relapsing or wandering into fantasy that's not good for me, or just getting angry at people and behaving badly. Am I hungry? Am I angry? Am I anxious? Am I lonely? Am I tired? Am I stressed? Stress for me goes straight to anxiety. 90% of the time, not even half the time, 90% of the time, a quick phone call or a 5-minute nap or a sandwich will fix it. It's amazing. It's just basic self-care. And this is a check-in that I can do when I'm all by myself. It's a check-in I can do if I'm in a crowded room of people in the middle of a meeting and my mind is wandering. I can do this check-in anytime, and generally, no matter what's going on, I can address the issue unless it's like I didn't get enough sleep last night and I need a nap and I'm in the middle of a meeting at work. But I can plan for a cat nap at lunch or something. The next one is rubber banding, and this works for any person dealing with any behavioral issue. Rubber band around the wrist. When you're triggered, snap it. It's just a distraction, attention task, out. Plus a little aversion therapy, I guess. I'm not a big fan of aversion therapy, but I had a rubber band on my wrist for my first year of sobriety. People would ask what it was, and I would tell them I'm struggling with an addiction, and this helps me, and they got it right away. The next one, the next two are variations of the same tool. One of them is the 3-second rule. One of them is refocusing. Dr. Rob and I actually disagree about the 3-second rule and how to implement it. So the 3-second rule is Dr. Rob's version and refocusing is my version. So when you feel triggered, this is Rob's version, the 3-second rule. You can't control the fact that you're going to get triggered. We can't control what comes into our mind. We can control what we do with it. So once we recognize that we're triggered, we have 3 seconds to think about the person who's triggering us as someone's wife or daughter or husband or whatever, child of God with thoughts and feelings of their own, and and then we can turn away from them and wish them the best and move on. And this works with sex addiction. It works with alcohol, drugs, anything. Wish them well and move on. I like refocusing because I have trouble taking someone I'm objectifying in the moment and thinking of them as someone's wife or daughter. But it's easy for me to think about the score of last night's baseball game, or it's refocusing. Just think about something else. The nice thing about either of those is you can use those two tools repeatedly. Because triggers will come in, we banish them, and they come right back in. And it'll be the same trigger sometimes. So we can use that rule over and over and over, which actually reinforces our desire to stay sober. The more times we're triggered and don't act on it, the stronger our sobriety becomes. And the 3-second rule and refocusing, both 3 seconds to change your thoughts, you can use them over and over. The next one is my favorite tool. Tami, what is my favorite tool?
Gratitude.
Yes, gratitude. And everybody on this webinar, if you've been here before, you've heard me talk about gratitude. A 10-item gratitude list will kill any trigger. I'm sorry, it just will. Most triggers are some form of unhappiness. And Brene Brown, who did all the seminal research on gratitude, one of the things she found was you can't be grateful and unhappy at the same time. Human beings are just not that deep. One emotion at a time. We cannot be unhappy, triggered, angry, or lonely and grateful at the same time. It just doesn't work. So remembering grateful things really is an overall mood changer. And usually, unlike the 3-second rule, it will banish my triggers for an extra amount of time and for a length of time, which is really good. Other tools, particularly for sex addicts, filtering and monitoring software, Net Nanny, Covenant Eyes, Custodio with a Q. Those are all really good. Journaling, going to meetings in person or online, prayer, meditation, reading recovery literature, working on the 12 steps, either alone or with your sponsor, being a sponsor, any kind of service work, and that includes within 12-step recovery. It also includes working at the soup kitchen or volunteering at the animal shelter, any of that stuff. Service work is amazing. Number one, it fills time. Number two, it fills time in a healthy way. And number three, it helps with our self-esteem. When I got into recovery, my self-esteem was in the toilet. I'm sure Tammy's was too. And people said, you want self-esteem? Behave in esteemable ways. And then they said, now go clean the ashtrays, and it worked.
Which there were ashtrays back in those days, yes.
Yeah, but Sammy and I both been sober long enough that we had smoking meetings, woo, in church basement. Oh God, they smelled so bad. And the last thing, and this is particularly for sex addicts, although I use circle plans with alcoholics and drug addicts as well. Circle plans, the inner circle is bottom line problem behaviors, middle circle is slippery stuff, outer circle are the healthy things we can do to replace our addiction. I carried my circle plan with me for a couple of years. This was before smartphones, so I had the world's smallest font printing out my entire plan. You know, these are things I can't do, these are slippery, and these are the healthy things. And I printed that out about like this, and I folded it up and I put it in my wallet. And I pulled it out all the time, never to look at the inner or middle circles. I knew those. I needed help with the outer circle. I needed to know what I can do instead of what my brain tells me I want to do, right? Yeah. So Tammy, do you want to add any tools? I want to run through the emergency exit plan in a second, but if you want to add any tools.
I love what you're sharing. And interestingly about the 3-second, because I see that as humanizing. I mean, like both of them get you out of the situation immediately. And that's great. And so I think the combination of both of those, and with the book ending, I was thinking, I know why it works, because you're committing to it at the beginning, but you're also aware that you had the phone call at the end to make. And so it's in your executive brain. So like the not acting out is up here instead of in the, oh yeah, I'm going to go do whatever and, go off the rails. So
I don't want to call my sponsor back and say, oh man.
yeah. But I did write down the journaling. So Harriet Hunter did a webinar last week, Wednesday, 2 weeks ago, Wednesday, for us on this platform, and it's on sexandrelationshiphealing.com under resources and previously recorded. And she's got an award-winning book, which I downloaded. It's now part of my daily meditations, but from her journaling, she wrote this book, and it's really helpful. But there's so much research on why journaling makes a difference, and to put pen to paper, and it's pen to paper, not just typing it out, but put pen to paper, the flow of that, and I think it's soothing, which is why gratitude lists, handwriting a gratitude list, focusing on that. I've been around long enough that now I know that I can do a mental one, and I can do one really quickly. But I learned long before Brene Brown started studying it that I cannot be angry, resentful, feel sorry for myself, whatever emotion, negative thing I was feeling, if I was grateful. If I had a modicum of gratefulness, it changed things. And like I can feel my mood shift. And that's so meaningful and powerful for me, so that I continue even a number of years later to use the same tools that served me well initially. So COVID's been hard. I've shared that on these before, and I've leaned into the same thing. Do you know how many gratitude lists I've made during COVID? A lot. So anyway, so carry on.
Cool. By the way, ask us questions. You can type them into the Q&A feature. Anything to do with addiction and recovery, Tammy and I will do our best to answer. But I'm going to talk for a few more minutes. So get your questions in, because we don't have any right now. This is kind of a freebie. This is an assignment that we give guys at Seeking Integrity Los Angeles at the treatment center. This is an assignment that I give the guys when I'm teaching the level 1 work group. And it's called the emergency exit plan. And it's a little bit like a fire drill, but it's for sex addiction or any other addiction or any behavior that you're trying to stop. So first thing, we need to identify clear warning signs. We need to know what our triggers are. Boredom, anxiety, lying, skipping meetings, keeping secrets, in addition to obvious triggers like seeing somebody or watching a certain movie or things that places I shouldn't be, certain areas of town, whatever, that are triggers. But I also have to identify my emotional triggers. Those are my alarm signals. If I'm feeling anxiety, which, by the way, David talks about the somatic, where it lives in you. Mine lives right here, right in the center of my chest in a long line. That's anxiety. Stress is up here and it moves into so when I'm having like this feeling, I know it's anxiety and I know I'm triggered. So I need to take an immediate action step. With anxiety, usually I'll try and identify the cause of the anxiety. That's an immediate action step. And I can usually, another immediate action step is to reach out for help. So I'll have a couple, we try to identify 2 or 3 immediate action steps. So for me, anxiety is identify the cause, reach out for help. And then the third part of the emergency exit plan is practicing it. So I have to practice, so sometimes, and how can I practice this? Well, I can just pause a couple times during a day and say, what am I feeling? I'm a little bored right now, or I'm a little tired right now, or I'm, whatever. And then I can practice the action steps, which almost always involves reaching out to another person is one of the action steps. And the way to practice the reaching out, is to actually pick up the phone when I'm not in crisis and say, hey, Tammy, what's up? You want to have coffee today? Sure. Okay. Or just to say, hey, Tammy, how are you doing? I just was thinking about you and wondered how you're doing. And that way I'm not imposing, it's just practice for when I do need to call her and get some help. So anyway, so clear alarm, identify some steps to take, and then practice the steps. It's the same thing we did in elementary school. The fire alarm goes off, the teacher says, go over there. Those are our action steps. We walk out and we practice it 3 or 4 times a year so we know what we're doing. And this greatly reduces our risk of relapse. I can't tell you how many times in the first couple of years that reaching out to somebody or just pulling out my outer circle and saying, oh, I can do this, saved my butt. Okay.
So you had your 3 circle. I have a version. This is it's many times been replaced, but they've made these little carry the little 12 steps with you. I mean, like this is where mine is. It's still right where I can see it. I know right where it is. I can reach it. I can get it. It's the same stuff. It is like my vision is so bad now that but it doesn't matter. I have it. I know what's on there. That's meaningful for it. Like it's just the presence of it, can shift things.
Sometimes reaching into my pocket just to pull my wallet out to get it was enough to stop me.
Yeah, I mean that's why the coins were, particularly for men who have pockets. You have your coin.
Phone calls. I don't even need you to answer. Me leaving a message saying, hey, I'm kind of having a tough day. I'm just calling to check in. I'll call you later, and I'm committing to sobriety between now and when we talk. And that it's kind of a bookend without even bookending.
Yeah. But you've taken, because it's really easy for us to go down the swirly, I loved what you're talking about too with the, being mindful, just kind of taking a stock of like, oh, my shoulders are a little tense. What does that mean for me? I'm getting a headache in the back of my neck. What does that mean for me? Like you talked about feeling it here, and I think being mindful, there's all these mindfulness apps and everything else. And people talk all the time about how mindfulness really helps us shift, so I think in addiction, we are so out of our bodies and out of touch with everything. So to be able to pull in, and this is true for partners too. It's like, just understanding, okay, I'm anxious. Okay, how can I do something different that will help reduce the anxiety even just a little bit, give you a little more breathing room. Great. So using, there's nothing magic in the tools that we use. It's just these are not stuff that came to us naturally, so we had to learn them. So that's why they're called tools and not just how we live. Now they are how we live. And again, like I can pull back to the same things. A gratitude list served me well every single day of my life. So
Yeah, and the big one, and David always emphasizes this too, is reaching out to other people. In early recovery, they sort of joked about the 500-pound phone. But people, and it was a 500-pound phone for me, but people said, okay, I'm going to call you and ask for help. And they would call me and pretend they were in crisis. These were like old timers. And God bless them. I'm still friends with some of these guys. And they would let me walk them through their crisis. And they would say, how did that feel for you getting this call? And I'd be like, wow, it felt really cool, actually. And they're like, good. So now you can call me when you're in crisis. I'm like, okay. And they meant it. And it really, I mean, you probably get calls, Tami, from people, and it feels good when people trust you enough to be vulnerable and say they're struggling.
There's two things. I have my personal recovery life where that happens, and then I have the people that reach out for help here, and there are so many people, and I know they're brave just to reach out, and so I hope they always know that I honor that they have taken that step, partner or addict, to just reach out, that because nobody has nobody got the manual on how to do life with addiction. Nobody got married going, yeah, and then in year whatever of our relationship, I'm going to find out, I'm going to have discovery, and there's going to be this, and I'm just going to intuitively know how to do this. No,
I'm going to find 400 porn videos on your phone. Won't
that
be fun?
Yeah, and I'm going to know what to do about that. I'm just going to intuitively know how to do all of this. So, okay, so we have a question. So questions in the Q&A, we only have one right now, so we'll keep reading them. I am the wife of a porn addict husband who has been sober for a year. I have only recently gotten to the point where I think I may have almost someday soon be ready to talk about working on recovery in our sex life. I recently learned about how novelty can come with experientially and emotionally driven types of sex, romantic, quickie, playful, lazy, playful sex. What are your thoughts on how porn addicts respond to this as a replacement for intensity? That's a great question.
Yeah, novelty is one of the drivers of porn addiction. It is the variety that makes porn so addictive. And I wish David was here. He can explain this better than I can. But there are lots and lots of studies, and intermittent reward is the driver, whether it's gambling, whether it, any kind of a payoff. They did studies with rats and food where you push the lever, you get a nugget of food. And the rats push the lever, they get a nugget of food, they eat it. They do that 2 or 3 times, and then they go do something else. Or if it's every other time, they push twice and they get it. They learn pretty quickly that every other thing is good. So they kind of treat it as one push. But if it's random, I push it, maybe I'll get it, maybe I push it 6 or 7, I get nothing, then I get 3 in a row. They will push that lever nonstop all day. Video games are random. Gambling machines are random. Porn is random. It's this intermittent response, and novelty plays into that. The variety of things plays into that, the intermittent response. So it really, really drives porn addiction. So as you recover, I'm not saying you shouldn't have novelty in your sex life as part of recovery. I actually think you should. But take it slow, make sure you're both ready. Talk about things before you do them. Connect, look each other in the eye as you have those conversations. Go through the Masters and Johnson Sensei focus exercises. You could have most sex addicts with longer term sobriety who are in relationships will admit at some point, my sex life is so much better now. It's so much more interesting and fulfilling now in sobriety with my long-term partner than it ever was in my addiction. And this goes back to sex addiction is not about sex. Sex addiction is about escape. And it's the novelty and the intensity that helps us escape. So when we become connected again, the novelty and intensity actually makes our sex life better because we're connected with our long-term partner. So I encourage you to pursue all of those things when you are ready, but do so carefully, because for the porn addict, it may be triggering. So talk about it first. Tami, thoughts?
Yeah, we actually had a similar conversation on an Eddie Caparucci's webinar today. So again, on sexandrelationshiphealing.com under resources and previously recorded webinars, there is a section of that. And we talked about Doctors Bill and Ginger Burkaw, who have a sexual reintegration. They did a podcast on Sex, Love, and Addiction podcast with Dr. Rob and talked about that. But the Sensate focus is, absolutely is a slow, building up to things, and but it's really about communication, because just like Scott was saying, it's, if addiction is all about, body parts and images and, and disconnection, then having a sex life with somebody you are intimately connected with and want to be vulnerable with, is a completely different thing. But it'll be awkward and it'll be funny and, all of those other things, and it's all okay. So
before we go on, I want to talk a
Yeah.
little about porn-induced erectile dysfunction.
Please.
Which comes from, the intensity and the novelty of porn drives the fantasies. And porn addicts often, even 17, 18, 19-year-old porn addicts, experience erectile dysfunction with real-world partners. Because of this, because a single real-world partner, it doesn't matter how much the addict loves that partner, how attractive the addict finds that partner, it just can't generate that much dopamine and adrenaline because it's one person. And porn addicts are used to rapid fire images and videos, one after another, and the novelty of not knowing what's next. Again, that sort of random intermittent reward, it's so intense. And a porn addict, they always say, oh, am I ever going to be able to perform again? It's like, yeah, you will, but you're going to have to let your brain reset. And David and I, this is another one we talk about all the time. The dopamine and adrenaline, the rewards part of the brain, will reset. It will get back to baseline, but it takes at least 6 months and sometimes up to 18 months, usually 6 months to a year. So don't expect great sex from your porn addict when he's 20 minutes sober, because it's probably not going to happen. And if you're the addict, don't expect to be, great in early recovery with sex, because you're not going to be. And that's okay. And that's why we do the Sensate focus. We build up the connection. We take it slow. And a lot of times, couples won't have any sex for 6 months or so until they're both ready.
Yeah, but it can be intimate touching,
Yes.
foot massage and, rubbing back. I mean, so there's lots of other ways. So genital sex is not, that's not the end goal. The end goal is healthy, intimate connections.
Yes,
in our
absolutely.
opinion. Okay, so somebody put one in the chat, so I'm going to read that one. They said, this may seem like a dumb question. No question is dumb. Apparently very simple, but how does healthy relationship look like? How does a normal, healthy couple look like? I started reading a book on love addiction, and I'm starting to think I'm a love addict. The view of myself before as the perfect wife, that all I did was love him like no one did, and waiting to be loved the same way, hoping he was my half, the one who makes me whole, and trying to make him whole. Apparently that is not how love is supposed to be. I was wrong my whole life. What is love then? Why do you marry somebody then? That's not a dumb question. That's a complicated question. So
yeah, it's a great question. It's a very complicated question. This is kind of a codependence thing. I mean, there are people who would look at you and say, oh, you're just codependent with him. You don't love him, you're codependent. And my answer to that is bullshit.
no, tell me what you really think.
Okay. It's relationships, you know, who do you want to be sitting on the couch watching Murder, She Wrote with when you're 80? That's love. If I want to sit on the couch with Tammy when we're 80 and watch reruns of Murder, She Wrote, we're probably in love. Um, it's got nothing to do with sex. It's got nothing to do with control. It's got nothing to do with being the perfect husband or wife. It's who do I feel like is my partner in life? And you're putting yourself out there to be a partner to. I'm assuming this is a husband, and I applaud that. And that does not sound like love addiction. Love addicts use love to escape the same way that sex addicts use sex to escape. Love addicts are serial monogamists usually, or serial multiple relationships at a time, but they bounce from one relationship to another. As soon as somebody disappoints them, they're looking to get out of that relationship and into the next one. They use the dopamine adrenaline rush of meeting Mr. Right or Ms. Right to get high, the same way sex addicts use porn or hookups to get high. What you're describing to me does not sound like love addiction at all. It sounds like somebody who wants a healthy relationship and has held up her end of the bargain, and is a little disappointed that her husband hasn't.
But I do have resources for you. So Dr. Rob on the webinar just from this past Monday talks specifically about love addiction, and I agree 100% with Scott. That does not sound like love addiction. That sounds like codependence. Dr. Stan Tatkin did a great podcast called We Do on sex, love, and addiction, and it talks about exactly that. What is a healthy relationship? And the two of us watching Murder, She Wrote on the couch, where it's the two of us against the world. That's we are better together. In an unhealthy relationship, we're better off by ourselves. This is the Super Reader's Digest version. It's a well done podcast. I would invite you to listen to it. But the point is, if we focus on what's good for our relationship, if both of us aren't going like, well, this is good for me, and Scott, I don't care if you want to watch Murder, She Wrote, I want to watch whatever, and I don't want to, whatever. If I'm always selfish and thinking about what I want, and I'm not thinking, well, gosh, Scott really wants to watch Murder, She Wrote, and I would like to spend time with Scott, so I'm gonna do this. I actually like that program, but it's one of those things where if it's good for our relationship, it's good for me. And if I'm just focused on, what I want to do, what I don't want to do, et cetera, that's not good for our relationship. And ultimately that isn't good for me either. So I would invite you, there's a podcast, Prodependence, and Dr. Rob wrote the book, Prodependence, Moving Beyond Codependency. I think you'll find yourself there in that as well. So all of those resources. And at any time, if you're looking, you can't remember something, first of all, the videos are recorded, but second of all, you can always email me, Tami, Tami, @seekingintegrity.com. So next, go ahead.
Answers, by the way, doesn't mean that we have to do everything together 24/7, 365.
Oh, no. Yeah.
I get to have a life. She gets to have a life. Heaven forbid, there is such a thing as too much of a good thing. So
yes. Yes.
Yeah, two individuals who come together and bond.
Yes.
On a regular basis.
And it isn't always, one of us sacrificing. It really is, it's the compromise. It's the give and take. And unfortunately, there's a power differential when there's addiction, and the pendulum swings. So healthy relationships are built, with trust over time, go ahead.
There's a give and take. Dr. Rob defines prodependence as one person's strong points filling in the gaps for the other person and vice versa. And that filling in of the gaps happening automatically and without question, because it's just what you do for each other. That's a really healthy relationship.
My husband is Mr. Even Keel. I'm not. And so I provide excitement for our lives and he provides stability, and that's how we fill in the gaps. And we're both better for it, and we both acknowledge it. So, okay. Next question. How have you dealt with cravings, particularly at night when you're sleeping and begin to have dreams that are fantasizing or reliving intense sexual compulsion? That's a great question.
Yeah. Tammy, did you ever have drinking dreams?
I did, and woke up terrified that, oh my God, I lost my sobriety. Yeah. And then you to go it was just a dream, and dreams are processing, you know. I've had other times when I had a particularly bad situation a few years ago, and I kept having recurring nightmares, and I knew I was processing through things, and I knew I was through the worst of it. About 10 months I quit having nightmares, and I was like, okay, so my mind was doing all that stuff while I was sleeping. It was still dysregulating. So
Yeah. Yeah. This is, yeah, cravings, all the tools we talked about earlier, particularly reaching out to other people, is the best way to deal with cravings. Cravings are like, it's more than a trigger. It's like, you hold your breath for 60 seconds and you need to breathe. That's what a craving is. So, so it's a really strong trigger. Reaching out to other people, pick up the phone, make sure that you have people you can call in the middle of the night. There were people in my world, I leave my phone on and I leave it by the bed. I have a lot of friends who are older, and I have gone to the hospital in the middle of the night. And by the way, they have taken me to the hospital in the middle of the night too. We're long enough sober that we don't have sobriety crisis, we have a health crisis. But
no, that's not good though, but I get it. Yeah. Yeah.
Bette Midler's Vegas act, she said, oh, my audience used to be on drugs. Now they're on medication. So that's kind of how I feel we are now. We used to be on drugs. Now we're on medication. But it's normal to have acting out dreams. It's normal to have drinking dreams, drugging dreams, sexual dreams, reliving sexual behaviors. And by the way, medications, I have an allergy medication. I was telling Tami I had weird dreams last night because I took my allergy medication. I couldn't breathe. They'll make it worse. Mexican food, love it. Makes my dreams weird. So maybe watch what you eat for dinner. Watch the medications you take. Make sure you have somebody you can call in the middle of the night so that you don't act out. Or bookend before you go to bed and in the morning, whatever you need to do. But cravings, they're rough. I mean, cravings are strong. So.
I would suggest creating a bedtime ritual that is a recovery focused something. So reading something recovery minded, doing some mindfulness, setting the tone for yourself. And this isn't going to be, and if you have a weird dream, it's going to, you're a fail. It's like, no, I'm practicing this and it's going to get better. But I have a feeling that if you set with intentionality that you're going to do something that is specifically focused on recovery, you may start seeing some progress with that. But yeah, I mean, the phone, yes, I had people that I could call at 2:00 in the morning, and I had my phone on where people could call me too. So that isn't, and even, even the fact of, like Scott said, reaching out. So even if it's like I'm texting somebody at 2:00 in the morning and saying, I'm having a weird dream, I'm going to talk to you about it tomorrow morning, but I'm going to be okay now. That may be enough. So or journaling, we talked a little bit about it before, when you wake up, because when Harriet was doing the webinar, she talked about journaling during the night. So it's like you wake up with a thought, you journal it, and then you can let it go, like it lets it go. So so there's tools. Keep trying. If something doesn't work, try the next one, because it's
not going to be the idea of having a sobriety ritual at night. And do not beat yourself up because you have an acting out dream or because you're triggered. I will not ever let anybody I sponsor or work with in work groups or our treatment center put being triggered or thinking about acting out in their inner circle as a bottom line behavior, because we can't control the thoughts that come into our head. We can control what we do with them. So I always say, those thoughts and the dreams, they're middle circle, they're slippery. You need to deal with them. You need to talk about it. But it doesn't mean you lost your sobriety. And the other thing, and I want to ask you this one, Tami, because I get this question a lot. If I have a thought about acting out that I don't act on, just I'm triggered or I see somebody or whatever, do I have to tell my partner?
No, in my world, no, because oh my gosh, your poor partner's going, what did you think of now? So no, I need to be accountable with my
Right.
accountability people. The acting on it, anything that crosses the line, then it's coming clean. But like you said, your thoughts and you can't control the fleeting thought. You can control the 3 second rule is because you can't go, well, for 3 minutes, I'm going to think about this. It's 3 seconds. It's bam, bam, bam. And, and you're letting it go. So, because otherwise we start ruminating and then it's bouncing around between our ears and, and that's a dangerous place to be. So, but to me,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah, sometimes betrayed partners want to know everything that's going on between the addict's ears, and that's really not a good idea for either of you.
No,
So,
no.
yeah, thank you for
Even
answering
with
that.
all this recovery, my husband still doesn't really want to know all the crazy stuff that goes on in my head. So I'm good with it, but most of the time.
Just
Okay.
tells me and I get it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And that's it. Other addicts, you start talking to them and we're all laughing about it, So, but, how do we get needs for human touch met without a partner during COVID? Oh, do you recommend a cuddle buddy? So I was gonna say, he's got a cat. My dog is not underneath the desk right now. He's got 2 cats, actually. Which one is
Cuddle
that?
buddy, cuddle buddy. Yes,
Which one is that?
this is Blue.
Blue. Okay. So yeah. So yes, my cat is aloof, but my dog is like, complete snuggle buddy. So, but honestly, now things are opening up. So, now people are getting vaccinated. So I hope it changes again. But yeah, I have physically missed, I used to go to my 12-step meetings and we'd hug people,
Yeah.
because I'm not in this meeting. I'm going to a different one. And I was like, I can't hug people. I go to the gym and you have to stay 6 feet apart and all. So it's been challenging, and I think all of us humans, are missing physical touch. But
Yeah, a couple months ago, my friend Dale, who's one of my go-to people in recovery, passed away, which was really tough for me. And there's a batch of 6 of us left who were really, really tight. So we had a meeting. We had a 12-step meeting. We decided we needed to have a 12-step meeting. And so we did it at my house, and we realized we were all vaccinated at that point. So at the end of the meeting, we held hands and we said the serenity prayer, and then we hugged, and we all started crying.
I was going to say I would be weeping. Yeah.
And not because of Dale's passing away, but because we finally got to hug each other again. It was that powerful. We missed it that much. This is a bunch of old fat guys, I mean, and we missed it that much. We really needed that connection, and we hadn't gotten it for a year. So I feel your lack of human touch, because that infants need to be touched. It is an actual need. If infants don't get enough human touch, they get ill. They just don't thrive. So this is a human need. It doesn't go away just because we grow up.
No, and I'm hoping as things now start opening up more that we're able to do that, and we are more grateful for it than we were before. Like we were, like you paid attention to it. You as a group were all aware, so, and I'm sure had extreme gratitude in the moment for that. So. Okay, next question. In your experience, does diet have an impact on the recovery process? My partner basically inundates himself with constant rewards, all sugar, oh my gosh, heavy foods and sodas, buys candy and spends money on essentially nutritionally empty foods or entertainment items. Do men in recovery tend to develop more regulation around gratifying things in life, or is it not so important? It's not just men, so.
You want to take that one, Tammy? You're much more of a, a healthy eater than I am.
Well, and it's not, this is one I could do a whole topic on, but so Lulu Cook did a great video on In the Rooms. email me, Tami at Tami at seekingintegrity.com. I'll give you a link. But she talked about that, and there are basic foods that you can use to help minimize triggers across the board. So why wouldn't you want to do that? But this is, and I can't diagnose, but I can on this one. This is switching. This is like, I'm going to fill the hole in my soul with food and all of this other stuff. And sugar is so highly addicted. And to Scott's point, the hardest thing, the one I struggled to give up was sugar. And I'm going to be completely honest. I didn't completely give it up, but I really minimized, because I used to think as soon as I got to lunchtime, then it was time to start having dessert. And I have dessert amnesia, because like I would have a dessert and then I would forget that I had a dessert so that I could have another dessert later. And this is like into the last couple of years. So I really was intentional about changing things. And so I had maintained my weight, and I'd scaled things down a lot, but I didn't want to give up that darn sugar, and it is so addictive, and it was mood altering, and so it was really one of those where I had to, and it's such a health issue. I can't tell you how many people have come into 12-step, and in the first 6 months they gained 50 pounds, and that's just substituting, and it's eroding your health. I told somebody earlier today, we can't be happy, joyous, and free if we're substituting another form of addiction and self-soothing. Gaming, gambling, food, anything too much. And if it's taking me away from my connections, if I'm stuffing my face with sugar instead of having a conversation and looking in Scott's eyes and talking about the score of the game, then I'm still in myself. So huge issue. And I, like I said, reach out to me about that video. It was a wow moment for me with what she was telling me. And that was just this year. So.
Yeah, early in recovery, if it comes down to acting out or eating a pint of Ben and Jerry's, eat the Ben and Jerry's. Okay, eat the Ben and Jerry's. There's a saying in AA, nobody ever got arrested for fat driving. They're like, instead of the alcohol, eat the candy bar. But at some point, Tami hit it. You're switching. You're on the Titanic and you're changing seats. The ship is sinking. As long as you're on that ship, it's sinking. And it's not just, I'm a triple winner: alcohol, drug addict, sex addict. And I was bouncing from one to another for the first 2 years of my recovery. I won't call it sobriety because I'd be sober in one, but not the other. And eventually I realized, I got to do something about all of these things. And a lot of guys, the big one right now is video games, particularly with porn addicts. They want to switch to video games. And, just like we talked about earlier with the intensity and the novelty and the intermittent reward, they are the same thing. Just one of them has more sex, and it provides the same dopamine rush, the same adrenaline rush, and the same emotional escape, which is the whole point of addiction of all kinds. So sugar heavy foods, Tami's right, they're highly addictive, and we use them for escape. I have not given up sugar. I'm probably never going to give up sugar. I like a piece of cake, but
I do too.
But I have a piece now. I don't have the whole cake.
Yes. Yeah. Everything in moderation. I just don't do that well. And so I had to learn. And Scott, alcohol, drugs, and eating disorder for me. So food has an extra layer of issues for me. And so it's been really challenging, and having to focus on food was really hard, but I'm in a healthy, I'm in a healthy mind space about my overall health and weight and what I eat and all of that type of thing, which for me is, that was a battle. That was really, really hard. So, and yes to the lesser, but there's, I'm on a women's recovery Facebook group too, and they were like, I've gained 50 pounds, and I feel so bad about it. And I was like, that's the problem. Is sure, it's a lesser of the evil, sort of, but on the other hand, health risks, but beyond that, it's like I don't feel good about myself. So even just making one right choice, like starting to substitute, going for walks, doing whatever, and all of a sudden I start feeling a little better about myself, and I go, oh, okay, I can do this, rather than throwing in the towel. So yeah.
And going back to our, I think it was our first question about reintegrating sex, and we talked a little bit about port-induced erectile dysfunction and letting the brain reset. If I'm still doing anything addictively, the brain reset, the brain getting back to baseline, I'm slowing that process down, and that can happen just as easily with sugar as it can with any other substance, including cigarettes.
Thank you. I was going to go smoking and vaping, because like people
Yeah.
go, well, it's just vaping. Well,
Yeah, I had a friend tell me the other day, "Oh, I'm not smoking anymore. I'm just vaping." I said, "You're smoking."
yes, yeah,
Same
yeah.
shit. You're smoking.
Yeah. Yeah. I get calls a lot, and, I have people that are now, well, cannabis is legal, so it's medicinal. So they're 24/7 on cannabis. I'm like, you still aren't happy, joyous, and free. You're missing the benefits, of recovery if you're shortchanging yourself and your loved ones. So, okay. Next question for the porn addict: what can be done to learn not to lie or omit important slips to the partner?
Great question. And we'll add, when will the addict stop lying? When will it stop? Addicts are notorious liars. We start by lying to ourselves. This is the denial. I had to make my behavior okay to me. So I lied to myself, and I did it often enough and loudly enough that I started to believe the lies. And then I started telling them to everyone else and expecting them to believe the lies. And then I just lost track of the truth. I lost touch with the truth. I lost touch with what was real and what wasn't. Whatever came out of my mouth right now must be true because I just said it. It was that bad. I spent more than the first year of my recovery catching myself lying for no reason. No reason. None. Just lying. I would catch myself in 12-step meetings sharing, the one chance that I have to be honest with a non-judgmental, empathetic audience, and lying. And somewhere along the way, I started saying, wait, that was a lie. I don't know why I said it. And people would laugh because they got it, because they've been there. What can be done to learn to not lie and not omit important information? Lies and secrets are the same thing. Secrets are just another form of lying. And Dr. Rob writes in Out of the Doghouse about rigorous honesty, tell the truth, tell it faster. That is just not where addicts are early in recovery. It is a slow process, and it has to work into your consciousness. And I do an 11th step every day. And one of the things is I ask for my higher power for help with whatever character defect I'm working on at any given time. And I usually work on a character defect for a month at a pop. I did honesty for like 6 months straight. Please help me be honest today. And the act of consciously saying that out loud every morning for like 6 months had me aware, just on a surface level, to pay attention to what's coming out of my mouth and what's not coming out of my mouth, secrets. But it took a long time and a lot of effort. As Tami, thoughts?
No, it is, because addicts lie about, like you said, the things that don't even matter to lie about, and we lie to ourselves. So, I was sharing that, I've heard in the last few days, I've heard people going, I'm never going to do this again. And, I learned my lesson, that this is in my rear view mirror. And I'm like, we're lying to ourselves, because we think that after all these years, we're going to just magically be able to stop. I don't need any help with this. I get it now. And so the problem is so core to us that we are lying to ourselves and therefore lying to everyone else. There's a book I've used. like, don't say the first thing. So it's like, say the second thing. But I think part of it is it gives you, like you said, you take a pause, and taking that pause and going, is this the truth? Is this a partial truth? Because the lies of omission and secrets, and what do I really want to do in this situation? And, I think having, and learning, we have the 24-hour rule, where come and tell the truth in the first 24 hours. And I said, hopefully, I mean, probably the first time it's 23 hours, 59 minutes, but hopefully, when the partner goes, I don't appreciate, that happened, but I do appreciate that you told me the truth, and then hopefully it's, a little shorter time. And then it's, 5 minutes ago when I said that, I lied, I was afraid of your reaction. I didn't want to hurt you, whatever it is. It's not, it's not an excuse. It's just, this is why I did it. And, and I'm going to, and don't say I'm sorry, just say, I'm going to work on doing this better, and do it better. So Scott plugged Out of the Doghouse. That book is a good starting point. So,
one of the other things I often do with my character defects is I'll do a 10 step at the end of the day. That's where we just go back and take an inventory of our day. What did I do well? What did I do not well? And if I'm really, really, truly working on a character defect, I will, like I'm working on honesty, I'll say, okay, what lies did I tell today? What secrets did I tell today? Do I need to come clean? And just catching myself and going, oh God, okay, that one I'll clean that up tomorrow. This one I need to clean up right now. And nobody likes doing intense step events. So it's really good motivation to stop lying. And Tami also talked about the 24-second rule, just to clarify.
24-hour rule.
24 hours, sorry, 24
Yeah.
seconds.
Yeah, that's fast.
24-hour rule, that would be really quick. If I tell a lie or fail to disclose something, keep a secret, as an addict, my partner and I can agree on a boundary, which is I will come clean about that within 24 hours. As long as I come clean within that 24-hour period, my partner agrees to not get mad at me about lying or keeping it secret. Now, my partner can be mad at me about what I was lying about or what I was keeping secret, but not the fact that I didn't come clean right away, because I did it within 24 hours. And that can help an addict. We can give a little grace period to come clean. So I like that boundary.
Yeah, and I do too.
The first 6 months or so.
Yeah, and because if it keeps happening and it keep over the same things, then there's not progress being made. So, but ideally, you are seeing as a partner, you're going, okay, my addict is coming to me sooner, and there's less, so the goal is, and I value honesty. I like, that's one of my really biggie things. I love that our company's called Seeking Integrity, because I strive for that personally, and I love that is a core of what we do. And so lying is one of the things I don't want to do personally, and I have a hard time with other people. So, but addicts lie, so when people don't show up and don't do things, and I just go, oh, it's an addict, I have to remember this, and hopefully they learn and get better. So, but anyway, I think we did it.
I think yeah, we did. Thank you, Tami, for joining us tonight, for filling in.
Always delightful to do it. Yeah. Happy to pitch in. Thanks to everybody who joined us and asked great questions. We love it. And David and Scott will be back next Wednesday, and you'll find Dr. Rob and me on Monday night. So join us then.